Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Minot, North Dakota, Monday, September 3rd, 2023. 47-year-old Ina Kenoyer was a very lucky woman, though not as lucky as her boyfriend, 51-year-old Stephen Riley. The two of them had been a couple, dating each other for 10 years. Now, although he had been a construction worker most of his life, Mr. Riley, as it turned out, was set to receive a very large inheritance, around $30 million. Mr. Riley had made plans to go to Minot Airport to meet with a lawyer who was acting as an executor of the estate and to finalize his newly acquired wealth. Some of his friends were also going to be going with him to the airport for this meeting, along with his girlfriend, Miss Kenoyer. Riley was already making plans on what he would do with the money. According to Stephen's son, Ryan, he planned on getting acres of land, giving Ryan and some of his brothers a chunk, then opening his own auto shop. Unfortunately, Riley would never make it to that meeting. On the way to the airport, Mr. Riley began complaining about severe stomach pains and began to have trouble walking. His friends said he appeared as if he was drunk, even though he hadn't had any alcohol that day. Riley then began vomiting and suddenly collapsed. Riley's friends wanted to get him medical treatment, but Miss Kenoyer told them she had medical training, and she insisted that what was happening to him was merely a heat stroke, and that all he needed was just to go home and get some rest. There was no word whether anyone told the lawyer who was supposed to be at the airport about any of this. The first red flag went up when one of Ina Kenoyer's friends reported seeing her dumping Mr. Riley's belongings outside their home on the day he had become ill. According to this friend, Miss Kenoyer was very upset. Stephen's son Riley had come back to his father's house when he learned of his dad's illness. He described the condition of the home as, quote, very nasty conditions. Dog waste almost everywhere, dirty clothes scattered all over the house, trash seemed to be endless, nothing there was clean. The following morning, September 4th, one of Riley's friends came to check on him. Kenoyer answered the door instead and claimed that Riley had gone to a walk-in clinic, but didn't say which one. The friend visited every clinic and ER in Minot, but there was no record of Mr. Riley having been treated at any of them. Later that day, emergency workers were called to the couple's home in response to a report of an unconscious male. They found Mr. Riley at the home unresponsive and took him to a local emergency room, but his condition was deemed so severe that he had to be flown to a hospital in Bismarck. He would be pronounced dead the very next day on September 5th. Stephen Riley would never regain consciousness. According to investigators, Stephen had been alone with Miss Kenoyer for at least 12 hours after he fell ill at the airport before she saw fit to seek any medical attention. Stephen's friends told the coroner that Miss Kenoyer had made comments about poisoning Riley with antifreeze in the past. The coroner had already run tests for alcohol, which came back negative. So, prompted by Riley's friends, the coroner ran tests for ethylene glycol, the key ingredient in antifreeze, and the results came back with toxic levels of the substance in Stephen's system. Investigators searched Riley and Kenoyer's home and found several noteworthy items, including an old Windex bottle without a cap. It had a bright green liquid inside of it. Investigators also found a glass Coors Light bottle and a plastic mug, both containing the same liquid, which they suspected of being antifreeze. Miss Kenoyer suggested to investigators different scenarios in which her boyfriend could have accidentally ingested antifreeze, including smoking a cigarette that may have fallen into antifreeze in the garage. According to the affidavit, Kenoyer also claimed that the symptoms of a heat stroke also mimic poisoning. Miss Kenoyer also acknowledged that she had served Mr. Riley sweet tea throughout the day on September 3rd, according to the affidavit. Antifreeze is known to be easily disguised in sweet drinks, investigators said. Kenoyer told investigators that Riley had been drinking all day long before he fell ill, but again, the coroner didn't find any alcohol in his system. Eventually, investigators would learn that Riley and Kenoyer's relationship had gone totally sour. In fact, years before his death, Miss Kenoyer had been making ominous postings about Riley on her social media. Investigators would also find that things had only gotten worse between them after she had found out about his inheritance. Mr. Riley had told Kenoyer that he wasn't going to share a penny of it with her. And if there was any doubt that the money was the motive for this incident, Kenoyer herself did away with that misconception. Talking with investigators, she told them that she was entitled to her dead boyfriend's $30 million inheritance because they had lived together, making her his common-law wife. She even tried to come off as generous by claiming that she would split some of her money with Riley's son. But it seems she had begun counting the money a little bit too early. Investigators told her that North Dakota doesn't recognize common law marriage, and investigators say Kenoyer became very upset when they told her this. Kenoyer eventually admitted that she had put antifreeze into the sweet tea that she had been serving to Riley that day. Last October, she was arrested and charged with felony murder. But the case would never make it to trial because on Wednesday, May 29th of this year, Ina Kenoyer pleaded guilty to murder and extreme indifference to human life at her pretrial hearing. But there's one last detail to this sordid little caper. As it turns out, Mr. Riley was a victim twice over. According to Riley's 21-year-old son, Ryan, there never was an inheritance to begin with. Ryan says that it was all a scam, that his father had received an email from someone claiming to be a lawyer for a distant unknown relative, and that this so-called lawyer had wanted to meet with Stephen Riley at the Minot airport to sign off on the cash. According to Ryan, this lawyer never showed up that day. It was all a scam. Speaking of scams, Ryan also said that his father's girlfriend never worked and was just leeching off of him. Kenoyer is set to be sentenced on August 13th in Minot. She faces the chance of life in prison without parole. Instead of researching poisons and trying to come up with a story to explain away the symptoms of her boyfriend, she should have been researching the law and trying to find out whether there was actually any chance she would have gotten any of that money. But if this case is any indication, if she hadn't been so trifling, he might have wanted to share at least some of his money with her, and even if he didn't, she should have just accepted that her man didn't want her and go get a job. But of course she didn't do any of those things because lazy people never do. Well, now, in a manner of speaking, Ina Kenoyer did get her wish. She had wanted to be able to spend her golden years living rent-free, eating meals and not having to work, and enjoying all of it on someone else's dime. And that's exactly what she's going to get. Though she will have to live with being called a murderer, a thief, and a fool. If she hadn't been so lazy, she would have researched whether her murder plot was legally sound, but all she could think about was how easy it would be to poison someone and then hope that the law would deliver the cash to her. Now she'll spend years, if not the rest of her life, in a cage. All of it for absolutely nothing. And for her, that's the worst part. Even if her murderous act had miraculously gone undetected, even if she had gotten away with it, she still would have found out that there was never any money in the first place. And while she surely would have derived some brief duration of satisfaction from killing Riley, it would have been short-lived. Since he was the one who had been keeping a roof over her head, she would have lost her meal ticket and still been forced to get a job anyway. Money isn't the root of all evil. Greed is, though in this case we can add laziness to that one too. You know, I'll bet at this point, she wishes she had been the one to drink that antifreeze. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Bo McLean, Charles Hairston, Monique Neely, Jesse Good, and Rose Arnold. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.